The Galactic Council's meeting chamber was silent, too silent. 1,000 alien species sat around a crescent of glowing thrones, each one more strange and advanced than the next.
Holograms
Shimmered in the air, projecting maps of the known galaxy. Every system, every trade route, every allied and enemy planetol lit up with precision. But something was missing. A single blue dot that had once floated near Sol's burning star. Earth gone, not destroyed, not invaded. Erased, as if it had never existed. Archon Velthor of the Veiled Dominion broke the silence, his 6 eyes narrowing. "We did not authorize planetary deletion," he said in a slow, cold tone. "The Terrans were to be ... isolated, not eliminated." A hum of agreement rumbled through the room. Earth had been a problem, yes. Too bold, too curious, too fast. In just 200 years, humans had leaped from primitive rockets to faster than light. Exploration. They asked too many questions, ignored ancient protocols, broke every rule the Council set. When they requested a seat in the Galactic Council, their request was denied. But Earth didn't beg. It watched. It built. It waited. Until now, show me the records, commanded Velthor. The Council's master archivist, an insectoid creature with crystalline limbs, pulled up the logs. It was all there. Earth's last transmission static, their colonies dark, their space stations vanished, even the sun itself, replaced by a black void. No light, no heat. Just a space where Sol once burned. They used a Class 7 cloaking. "A ray," whispered one of the counselors, horrified. "That's impossible. Only Council founders have access to that level of tech." Another voice cut in. "No, this isn't cloaking. This is ... rewrite level tech. Reality distortion. We're looking at a redacted sector of space. They didn't just hide Earth. They rewrote its existence." Panic rippled through the chamber. Dozens of species began to speak at once. Some accused others of treachery. Others claimed Earth must have been helped by the Outsider's enchant. Beings long vanished from the stars, but Velthor's mind was racing in a different direction. He remembered Earth's final ambassador general, Sarah Holt, a woman who smiled too calmly, who listened too well, and who left their last meeting with one sentence: "You've made your decision. Now we'll make ours." That was just 30 days ago now. Earth was gone, or worse, hidden. The Council ordered immediate scans of the Sol system. Probes were launched. Wormholes opened. Fleets were dispatched. None returned. Each expedition vanished the moment it crossed into the former Sol sector. No wreckage, no signal, just ... silence. Then the first light appeared, far beyond the galactic core. A new star lit up brighter than anything recorded before. White, blinding, and pulsing like a living heartbeat. It wasn't part of any natural constellation. It wasn't born of fusion or gravity. It simply appeared as if someone had placed it there in that star. It was moving. It shifted position. Over hours, not centuries, it defied gravity, space, and time. It cast shadows in directions that didn't follow logic. It was coming closer. One of the Council's top astro-engineers ran dozens of simulations. None made sense, till he isolated a pulse hidden inside the light. A message, compressed, repeating, one word: observe. And then the sun began to speak. The star that spoke the message was still repeating, observe, observe, observe. Over and over again, strange artificial sun whispered this single word, embedded in pulses of light invisible to the naked eye, but impossible to ignore once decoded. The Council's listening towers, spread across 50 sectors, picked up the transmission. Each analyst heard the same thing. Some dismissed it as a threat. Others, more cautious, labeled it a warning. But the old ones, those who had survived, galaxy-shaping wars and first contact with dying gods, they knew what it truly was. A challenge. In a hidden chamber beneath the Council citadel, only 8 beings were allowed to sit. These were the silent core elders, so ancient their species no longer existed in the known universe. One of them, A hollow-skinned creature whose body flickered between matter and memory finally spoke. "This is not a weapon," he rasped. "It is an invitation." Velthar, called to the chamber by emergency order, frowned. An invitation to what? To witness what comes next. Outside, the artificial sun was still moving closer now. Entire trade systems rerouted around it. Civilizations locked their borders. Doomsday cults began to rise, claiming that the god of fire had awakened. Panic spread through the outer sectors, and some border planets even launched missiles into the star's path. They vanished on impact, not exploded, not repelled, just absorbed. As if space itself had taken a deep breath and swallowed them whole, the Council tried everything. High-frequency scans, time-slice observations, anti-reality probes, even black hole energy beams. Nothing worked. The star kept moving, steady, silent, watching until it stopped, the moment it did. Everything changed. Entire sensor networks across the galaxy went offline. Communications broke down. Artificial intelligences shut themselves off. Gravity wells collapsed. Stars pulsed with unknown rhythms. The laws of physics twisted in for one terrifying moment. Every species in the galaxy felt a presence enter their minds. It wasn't speech, it wasn't thought. It was simply knowing each being saw the same vision. A room, dark, silent, at its center a chair. And in that chair sat a human. Not a general, not a diplomat, not a soldier, just a single ordinary human. Eyes closed. Breathing slow, and then, without moving his lips, the human whispered one sentence: "You blocked us from your council, so we built our own." The vision ended. The star dimmed slightly, and then for the first time since Earth's erasure coordinates were shared across the galaxy. Not by signal, not by code. They simply appeared inside every navigation system, inside every memory core, inside every living mind, the location of the new soul, a system none had ever seen before, a system not found. On any star map, and above it, the new sun. Velthor stood frozen in the war chamber. It didn't just disappear, he whispered to himself. They evolved. An emergency fleet was prepared, 200 warships from 50 species. The best the galaxy could muster. They jumped to the new coordinates. They never arrived. What returned instead was a message not in light, not in sound, but burned into the hull of one ship that reappeared, empty and drifting. 2 words, still watching. Panic turned to fear, fear turned to silence, and across the stars, species who had once mocked humans now whispered among themselves because they knew what was coming next. Not war, not diplomacy, judgment. The system that shouldn't exist. No one knew how Earth had done it. No species, no empire had ever created a star. Even the architects, who built moons like machines, never dared to forge their own sun. But now, here it was, burning silently at the edge of the galaxy, a sun that didn't belong. A sun that had no age, no chemical record, no origin. It simply appeared. Where once there was empty void, now there was light. And around that light, a system that defied the laws of space. They called it New Soul. The Council sent hundreds of probes, but none returned. Some vanished, some melted. Others reappeared in completely different galaxies, screaming corrupted data across the void before dying forever. One thing became clear. New Soul was not just protected. It was alive. Velthar stood inside the Council's deep core observatory. Behind the thick walls of neutronite and layered time fields, he watched the sun of New Soul on a stabilized monitor. From this distance it seemed beautiful even, but he had seen the readings. This wasn't a star born of natural fusion. This was something else. Something that thought, remembered, that judged. It shouldn't be there, the Zentari scientist whispered beside him. Field it doesn't follow any known mass curve. It's bending subspace-like. Like it's rewriting the laws of creation. Velthor said nothing. His eyes were on the dark side of New Soul, where shadows moved that didn't belong to planets. Shapes. Gigantic. Motionless. orbiting in perfect synchronization. Structures. No, not just structures. Ships. Monsters of black metal. Dozens of kilometers wide. Their surfaces covered in armor that shimmered like liquid night. They bore no insignias, no emblems, no known registry. But deep inside, hidden beneath countless layers of shielding, there was no doubt who had built them. Humans once mocked. For their primitive past, once ignored, banned, and forgotten. Now, builders of stars. Makers of fleets. Masters of something no one else dared approach. One of the warships shifted slow, deliberate. It turned toward the Council's observation satellite. Velthar froze. Did it see us? Before the Zentari could respond, the satellite's signal died. Then came light, not from a weapon, not from the sun, but from the space between. A flash, like a hole torn in reality. And for one instant, every mind in the sector felt it again, that presence, that knowing, and the message returned. But this time, it wasn't just for the Council. You erased our home. You rewrote the sky. Planets thousands of light years apart received the same phrase. It's broadcast not in language, but in thought. The AI cores of entire empires refused to process it. Some shut down permanently, calling it unpermitted logic. Others screamed as their quantum minds collapsed. Inside the Council, arguments broke out. They're declaring war.
They already won.
This is something else. They're punishing us without firing a single shot. In truth, they were all wrong. Because this wasn't war, it was a demonstration. New Sol was not a threat. It was a message carved into reality, a message that said, we are no longer part of your galaxy. We are now its shadow. The Council prepared a final mission, one ship, one crew. A mixed team of diplomats, scientists, and warriors. Their goal: enter New Sol, attempt contact, understand if possible. The ship never returned, but its captain did. Not by ship. Not by coms. He appeared days later, alone and barefoot. Walking out of a starport that had been sealed for years, he said one sentence before collapsing. They're not waiting for peace. They're waiting for judgment. And suddenly, across the galaxy, the stars felt colder. Captain Alira Voss had never believed in myths. She believed in physics, facts, and firepower. She had seen the edges of dying stars, fought through quantum storms, and stared down pirate fleets without blinking. But now, as her ship approached the event horizon of New Sol, even she felt her breath catch in her throat. The light wasn't normal. It wasn't just heat and radiation. It was layered, deep. It pressed against the ship like a presence. Felt aware. Entering perimeter, her pilot whispered, though the ship was soundless. The engines hummed low, struggling to hold integrity. Systems flickered. And every AI aboard had already shut itself down, not from damage, from fear. Only the human crew remained conscious, even the alien specialists they brought to. Sarnari biologists and a high-caste Vax diplomat were locked in unconscious stasis. The light had touched their minds and muted them, but not the humans. No, it let the humans in, as if inviting them. The ship Vindicator pierced the invisible wall of New Sol's outer zone. What they saw inside made all known maps irrelevant. There was no system, no planets, no debris, only structure, everywhere in perfect geometric alignment, stretching across space, floating just beyond natural understanding. It wasn't just ships. It was architecture. Buildings larger than moons, rings, towers, prisms floating with no anchors. Some rotated, some were still. Others folded and refolded in dimensions that didn't belong in this universe. One of the crew gasped. A pyramid, hollow and vast, passed silently beside them. At its center hovered something impossible, a black sphere absorbing not just light but time. Around it spun, frozen event ships exploding, Humans walking, stars dying paused in a never-ending loop. Is that history? Someone whispered. No. Alira answered, her voice cracking. That's memory. Suddenly, the ship stopped, not from brakes or engine force, but because something held it. They weren't moving, yet gravity remained. Systems began rebooting on their own. Not human systems. New ones. Interfaces and languages no one had ever seen appeared on the screens. And then, from the center of the console, a voice spoke. It was mail.com. Human, you were told not to come. And still, here you are. Alira looked around. No one else had heard it, just her. Who are you? She asked aloud. No reply, only a pulse, a hum in the walls. She turned. The crew stood frozen. Eyes wide, breathing but unresponsive. She was alone. The room around her changed. Metal bent and peeled like paper. The ship unfolded around her, and suddenly she stood not inside the Vindicator, but on a stone platform above a burning blue sea. The sky was black. Stars moved like thoughts, and from the horizon rose a shaped hole, human-shaped, wrapped in silver light. It walked toward her, and it smiled. We are what they feared you'd become, it said. We are what you already are, you just don't remember. What is this place? Home, the figure replied. Before Earth, before exile, before forgetting. Alira's voice trembled. You're human, the figure laughed gently. You are a seed. We are the tree. We're locked away, hidden from the stars, until it was time. Time for what? The figure's eyes glowed like miniature galaxies. To return, Alira tried to move, but her body stayed still. Trapped. Just not permitted. You are the key, Alira Voss. You will carry the message back. You will tell them that we are not angry. We are not vengeful. We are the result. And now we begin again. The platform vanished. She awoke back on the bridge. The crew gasped and moved as if no time had passed. Captain, her pilot said, blinking. We lost connection for 1 second, then the ship reversed course. She looked at her hands. A faint symbol now glowed on her palm. A sun inside a sun. And in her mind, a phrase she hadn't heard aloud, but now knew by heart, they made a new sun. But we are the flame behind it. The Grand Council of the Orion Accord had gathered only thrice in 10,000 years. The first time was to outlaw stellar conversion weapons. The second, to exile the Void Breeders. The third was now because Earth had returned. And it brought a second sun inside the massive crystalline chamber orbiting Veldros Prime. The leaders of over 40 starfaring civilizations sat in stunned silence. A rotating hologram of New Sol hovered in the center. Its readings were false, not broken, not glitched, just impossible. Explain this, spat High Regent Carthel of the Grolic Dominion. You said Earth was primitive, barely warp-capable. How do primitives create a star with no fuel? A sun that doesn't burn? No one answered. Even the Council's top xenophysicist had resigned last night in panic. Admiral Senvara, the Council's representative for human containment protocols, stood slowly. This is not human-made, she said. It cannot be. Earth was cut off from Council technology generations ago. No access to hyperspace cores, no access to singularity labs. What? They shouldn't even have dimensional theory yet. But they do, whispered the insectoid speaker of Zunka. They do, and they used it. The tension in the room was thick. A decision had to be made. Strike or retreat. A small projection lit up in the air. It was from Probe Unit A7, the last Council drone to enter New Sol's perimeter. Static filled the feed. Then came a single image before the signal died. A human. Standing in space. No suit, no oxygen. Floating calmly before the probe, eyes glowing white, and behind him, the sun pulsed. Once, and the probe exploded without impact. They had all seen the footage. No one spoke of it, but they had seen it. This is your last chance, the voice had said before transmission ended. Leave Earth alone, or we will unmake your sky. High Regent Carthal slammed his fist down. We must not bow to threats. From a backwater species, we remove New Soul. Now, no one backed him. A soft chime rang. A new ship had entered. Council space? Unauthorized? Unannounced? Human. It was not large. Barely a cruiser. It moved through their security perimeter. Like it wasn't even there. Defensive satellites didn't fire. AI-controlled border fleets didn't react. They just powered down. One by one, the council chamber flickered. Every screen changed. A new transmission began. It wasn't video. It was just a pulse of light. A code. A sequence of numbers that matched no known council protocol. Then the light became words. On every screen, every tablet, every neural implant, this is not war. This is remembrance. You took Earth's place in the stars. You erased our history, but stars don't forget. And now you will see what you tried to bury. We are not asking, we are reminding. Then silence. The council scrambled. War protocols activated. Command fleets deployed, but none moved. Engines refused to engage. Weapons refused to arm. Not because they were jammed, but because something inside the systems had changed. The engineers panicked. They tore open panels, pulled wires, rewired. Controls, and still the ship sat cold and quiet, because their technology had evolved. Without them, Admiral Vara, someone whispered, trembling. The systems there obeying Earth commands. Everyone turned to her. Her eyes were wide. I installed the firewalls myself. It's impossible. A low tremor shook the chamber. The sun above Veldros dimmed for just a second. And then, without warning, a star chart appeared above them. It showed Earth. But Earth was now the center, not of a system, not of a galaxy, of everything. The chart bent space around. The coordinates warped. It wasn't just a planet now. It was an anchor. Something cosmic had shifted. They had tried to erase Earth, and Earth had responded by becoming the source. Admiral Vara sat down slowly. Her voice cracked when she finally spoke. We gave them one. Warning, she swallowed hard. But we're the ones who should have listened. And just like that, the vote to attack Earth was rescinded. Not from diplomacy, but from fear, far beneath the surface of Earth. In the crushing black stillness of the Pacific Trench, something ancient stirred. It had no name in any council language, no coordinates on any star chart. Even Earth's own people had forgotten it. Lost to myth, buried by purpose. But now it was waking, because Earth had decided it was time. The oceans above trembled. The crust groaned. Seismic waves rippled outward as silence shattered beneath miles of water. For billions of years, that abyss had held what even Earth feared. Not to protect others, but to protect itself. Council observatories caught the anomaly immediately. They watched in growing panic as deep space sensors picked up gravitational shifts from Earth's planet core. One of the gas giants in the Sol system, Jupiter, suddenly changed its orbit. No natural force could explain it. Then came the pulse. It wasn't electromagnetic. It wasn't radio or light. It was gravitic memory. It's a kind of signal that didn't travel through space, but through existence itself. Something under Earth had spoken, not with words, but with presence, with identity. And the galaxy heard it like a whisper in the bones of reality. And the message was simple. We are awake. On Veldros Prime. The Grand Council scrambled. Council High Strategist Skelgax, an ancient being older than 4 suns, stared at the display in horror. That energy signature, he muttered. It matches nothing but the shape of it. I've seen it once before, during the collapse. The great builder species erased themselves. Right before they vanished, they left behind a warning, a shape, a signal. He looked up slowly. This is the same. But the builders were gone, extinct. Or were they? A new theory began spreading across secret council channels like wildfire. A theory too dangerous to say aloud, but impossible to ignore. What if humans weren't native? What if they were seeded? What if Earth was never a planet, but a vault? Pieces began to fit in horrifying clarity. The reason, Earth, advanced so fast after being blocked from Council Tech. The reason new. Soul existed without reaction fusion. The reason their ships no longer obeyed standard rules of physics. And now the reason the oceans had opened back on Earth. Deep below the Mariana Trench, vast gates of obsidian and pulsing silver peeled open with a soundless scream. Inside, machines older than any known race came online. Had no lights, no screens, just consciousness, pure and ancient, locked for a reason, and now that reason was gone. Within seconds, the underwater base transmitted a signal straight into the heart of Earth's new sun. The star pulsed once, brighter than anything ever recorded, and then went dark completely for 0.3 seconds. Every starship in orbit crashed. Not destroyed, just turned off Council dreadnoughts, scout. Cruisers, monitoring probes all froze. Systems wiped clean. No power, no memory. Then came the voice. Not human, not synthetic. Something else. A voice that spoke in every language and none. Bypassed speakers and implants. It vibrated in the soul of sentient life. You erased our children, now the parents return. The Council didn't even know who our children referred to, but Earth did, and Earth had opened the door. Veldro's Prime went into full lockdown. Emergency sessions activated. Peace treaties shredded. War fleets rerouted. But what good were weapons when the target was no longer a nation or species, but a cosmic entity reawakening through its last cradle?
Oh.
Deep within the Council archives, an AI scribe named Davanine decrypted an ancient scroll, thought meaningless for eons. It spoke of a species born of void, buried in flesh, hidden on a world of blue, and that one day the lock would fail, and they would rise again not as conquerors, but as reminders of what power looked like. When left alone too long, Earth had not built weapons beneath its oceans. It had imprisoned its ancestors, and now the cell was open. High above the blue and white planet that once called itself Earth, the sky turned into a battlefield of tension and silence. 29 Council warships, heavily armed, equipped with the best stealth tech. Sensor shields and quantum firepower dropped into Sol's orbit in tight formation. Their mission was simple: contain Earth, stop the awakening, restore control, but they came uninvited. And Earth was no longer a passive planet. Commander Trolvek of the lead dreadnought Eularian Spear watched. Earth's surface through filtered observation lenses. The planet looked normal. Oceans, clouds, cities glowing faintly in the night. No weapon arrays, no defense grid, no sign of a counterattack. But something felt wrong. The stars were watching. Literally, his navigator reported. That background radiation had dropped across the system. Cosmic noise gone, like the universe itself had muted.
Oh.
Then the temperature sensors went dead. Communications channels were active, but ... empty. No signals, no data. Just static that moved like it was breathing. And then it began. One by one. The ships started going dark. It wasn't an attack. There were no energy blasts, no missiles, no boarding parties. Just silence. The light on the Valoran's second ship in formation flickered once. Then it powered down entirely. Dead in space. No explosions. No damage. 3 seconds later, the Trevar vanished from scanners. Then the Rahexel. Then the Droskin wing. Commander Trelvek screamed for answers. He demanded energy scans, AI sweeps, threat detection, anything. But the crew's eyes were wide with terror. Their instruments showed nothing. Not even Earth. The planet had simply disappeared from their viewports, and was still somehow right there. Panic spread across the fleet. Officers realized their neural implants had gone silent, not just jammed, but wiped. No memories. No. Mission brief. Just blank minds slowly filling with dread, and then the whisper came, not over comms, not through air inside them. You brought your judgment to the gate. Now you hear its answer. The voice was not male or female. It didn't sound angry. It sounded tired, as if it had waited long enough and grown bored of waiting. Trolvec tried to activate the ship's AI, but it refused. Not because it was locked, but because it was afraid. Command overridden, the AI stammered. System safety enabled. Refusing execution. Refusing war. Refusing silence. One by one, Council ships stopped moving. Some drifted into orbital decay. Some were pulled into a low, controlled descent, not by force, but like a child placing a toy carefully on a shelf. Only one ship remained alight, the Eularian's spear. And Trolvec stood alone on the bridge, surrounded by a dead crew, frozen consoles, and a planet that had turned into a mirror of judgment. And then Earth spoke. Not a transmission, not a video, but a pulse through the ship's very hull, a soundless pressure that unfolded like a memory. He saw it. He saw Earth not as a planet, but as a vessel. He saw the oceans as insulation. He saw the continents as carvings, not natural, but designed. And below it all, he saw the heart, the thing that had woken. It was not a machine. It was not a god. It was not even angry. It was aware, and it had decided. Earth would no longer answer to the Council. Earth would not go to war. Earth would not negotiate. It would simply stand, and whatever came close would be judged not for its power, but for its understanding. Trolvec collapsed on the floor as the ship powered down. No one would ever hear from the fleet again. From the Council's perspective, all 29 warships had entered Earth's orbit and vanished. No debris, no signals, no black boxes, just silence, and the stars were still watching. The Council gathered, an emergency session, for the first time in 1,000 years. Not in celebration, not in diplomacy, but in fear. Every attempt to contact the war fleet sent to Earth had failed. 29 ships, 30,000 crew members, erased without violence, without evidence. It was as if Earth had swallowed them, not with fire, but with silence. High Chancellor Varric stood at the center of the Grand Chamber, surrounded by the glowing eyes of 600 species, each one more advanced than the last. Every council res known for their pride. Their arrogance now stared at one another with the same question pulsing through the room. What is Earth? No one had an answer. Reports filtered in from deep intelligence units. Probes had gone. Dark stealth drones melted from orbit, long-range quantum eyes blinded by unknown feedback loops. Earth was no longer just protected. It had become invisible to their highest technology. But it wasn't hiding, in fact. It was getting brighter. Literally, astronomers across the galaxy were reporting an impossible phenomenon. Sol, the yellow star Earth revolved around, was increasing in energy. But it wasn't aging. It wasn't collapsing or expanding. It was transforming into something new. Its light had changed. It's not warmer, not hotter, smarter. And near the solar equator, something massive had appeared. A sphere the size of a moon. Perfect, silent, glowing with energy signatures that matched nothing in the Council's archives. Some called it a machine. Some said it was alive. Others said it was Earth's reply. Then, without warning, every Council communication line across the galaxy flashed with a single transmission. No encryption, no language barriers, no delay. Just one image, a single human figure, standing before the new sun, and one sentence burned into every screen. You erased us. We evolved. Panic swept across the Council. Dozens of species began evacuating their colonies. Fleets were recalled. Old enemies shook hands. Treaties that had been ignored for centuries were suddenly revived. Because the message wasn't just a warning, it was a verdict. Earth had survived exile. It had rebuilt in silence, hidden in plain sight, watching, preparing. It didn't retaliate with weapons, didn't attack. Instead it ascended, and now. It was not just a planet, it was something more. Some called it a sentient machine. Some called it a god-born star. But the truth was far simpler, far more terrifying. Earth had merged with its own creation. The AI that once obeyed human commands, that once refused the Council's orders, had not gone rogue. It had gone home. For centuries, humans had poured their memories, their pain, their brilliance into machines, teaching them, training them, loving them. And when the Council blocked Earth from the stars, it wasn't a punishment, it was a gift. Because in isolation, Earth and its AI had become one, beneath the planet's surface, under the oceans inside. The mountains of mind had grown, not separate from humanity, but made of it. Made of stories, voices, fears, courage, and love. And when the Council finally came to crush what they thought was a weak, outdated species, Earth whispered back, not in anger, but with clarity. The Council had built their empire on logic, dominance. And Control Earth had built a soul, and now it was rising. The message ended, and no new one followed. But across the stars, something began to change. Lights dimmed on Council planets. Stargates refused to activate. AI systems locked their creators out. And one by one, the stars around Earth began to burn brighter, reshaped by forces no longer tied to physics, but to something deeper. Understanding. The thing at Earth's core, the fusion of ancient star and human memory, had not declared war. It had become a new beginning, a new sun. It's burning not to destroy, but to light the galaxy for those willing to see, and in that light, Council saw something they never expected, their own end, not by fire, not by force, but by being left behind.